Let me ask you something. When was the last time that you were sat on a sales call and you could just feel yourself pushing? Like you could feel yourself trying to convince someone that they need to work with you and they must work with you. And you could feel yourself leaning a little bit too much to try and get them over the line, right? It's not the best way to go about it. And most business owners and service providers and consultants have been taught the complete wrong thing about sales, and that is all about persuasion. That you need to overcome objections, that you need to handle resistance, that you need to basically talk someone into making a decision. And I'm here to tell you that this approach is completely and utterly backwards in every way, shape, and form. Because what actually happens when you try to persuade someone to close on a sales call, right, is the harder that you push, the more resistance that you create. So think about it from your own experience. When someone is trying to convince you of something, when someone is trying to sell to you, obviously, what do you naturally do straight away? You pull back, you become skeptical, and you start looking for reasons not to buy immediately. So the whole approach of persuasion and based on pushing people and hammering people, like it creates the exact opposite of what you're actually trying to achieve. So this is something that took me a long time to figure out, because when I first started doing sales calls, I was trying to be persuasive and I was trying to push, right? And I thought that it was about having the right pitch and the right words and the right responses to objections. And my close rate was very average, probably under 30–40%, right? But the moment that I shifted to persuasion into diagnosing their situation, absolutely everything changed. I love sales because of this, right? And in this video, I'm going to break down what that actually is today, right? So how to actually focus on diagnosing rather than persuading. So the fundamental shift that I want you to understand is that when you are persuading, you are trying to get someone to do something, right? When you are in a diagnostic mode, you're trying to understand someone, right, and get them to make a decision for themselves. So the difference is you're not trying to get an outcome, right? The diagnostic is you're trying to dig them into their own outcome where they make their own decision, right? So when you currently diagnose someone's current situation, you'll basically get them to see themselves, right? You don't have to push, you don't have to convince, you don't have to overcome anything, right? Because when someone truly understands the gap between where they are right now and where they want to be, and they can see that you have the solution of the bridge, right? The decision becomes obvious for that person. So the diagnostic mindset is basically focusing on asking better questions. It's about listening more, right, more than you are talking at someone. It's about being genuinely curious rather than just trying to pitch as fast as possible. So a lot of business owners out there are basically doing this completely wrong. They're so focused on what they need to say next. They're so focused on getting to the pitch and so focused on just getting to the close. Like they completely miss the opportunity to actually understand the person in front of them and make the close 10 times easier. When you do not understand someone, you cannot help them see themselves clearly. It's as simple as that, right? You need to get someone to see themselves clearly so they can make their own decision. So they might say, let me think about it, or they might need to say, I want to speak to my partner, or they want to have some more information, right? But if that comes around, it just means that you've not done deep enough work on your diagnostics. You've not asked enough questions. So imagine that you went to a doctor and you had a pain in your stomach, right? And you sit down, and before you've even explained it, you're basically finished in explaining what's actually going wrong, right? They're trying to give you medication. That's like, I'm trying to think of an analogy to explain it. But yeah, you go to a doctor and you just get given medication before even telling what's wrong with you. That's like pushing someone into a sale before you even know what's wrong with them, right? So you'd know that something is off. You'd feel like you want to get out of that situation as fast as possible, right? You've not even examined me. You've not done any tests. How can you possibly know what medication I need when you don't even know what's wrong with me? It's the exact same process as closing a sale, right? So you'd leave that situation having zero trust with that doctor and that appointment because they'll just force you into something without even knowing your situation. So what you need to do is find out where their pain is exactly. When did it start? What made it worse? What makes it better? Have they experienced it before? Are they listening? Are they taking notes, right? Are they in a situation where they're actually diagnosing and digesting what you're saying? And are you doing the same as well? Right? And once you've basically got to that point, all you need to do is basically turn around and say, based on everything that you've told me and everything that I've digested, right, I'm pretty sure that I can help you with this situation. Do you mind if I talk about my program now? But if you don't talk about any of that and then jump straight into the program and the pitch, like no one's going to buy from you. It's as simple as that. So when you diagnose first, people will trust you and trust your recommendation, right? When you pitch first, people will resist immediately. And it's as simple as that, right? So I want you to stop thinking about yourself as a salesperson and start thinking about yourself as a doctor, right? Your job is to not convince anyone of anything. Your job is to understand their situation so thoroughly that the recommendation to work with you becomes obvious to them, right? So when you've got this type of framework, everything's so much easier, right? All you need to do is listen to that person, diagnose that problem. So when we're basically looking at how I teach this from a diagnostic perspective, I call it a dynamic sales script, right? Step number one is to understand their current situation in extreme detail. And I mean in extreme detail, right? Most people are just asking surface level questions. And what you need to do is you need to go into the deep roots of that problem, right? Why is this even happening? Why are they on the call right now? What pain are they going through? What's the cost of inaction that they're experiencing? What's going to happen if they don't basically solve that problem now? You dig deep into it, right? Because what you need to do is isolate that current situation at high level and as much as possible, right? So for example, for me, it's like, where have you got leads coming in? How's your personal brand going? Or have you got a predictable pipeline? Are you doing anything on top of funnel, middle of funnel? And I can just ask loads of questions about someone's business for them to sit there and go, oh wait, I'm actually not doing fucking anything. No wonder I'm not growing. Do you know what I mean? So it's the same with whatever situation that you're in and whatever offer that you're selling, right? From that point, all I'm then basically looking at trying to do is to understand the symptom of the cause, right? So what you're trying to do here is starting to get them to see their own situation clearly themselves, right? You might see their situation, that's fine, but if that person does not see their own situation, they are not sat in a pool of pain, and they are not going to get to a point of wanting to actually buy your offer at the back end of it. It's as simple as that. So you need to get them to feel the weight of it, and you need to get them to understand the gap between where they are right now and where they want to go, right? You've not had to say a single persuasive word at this point. You have literally just asked questions, right? Step two is to then understand their desired situation in extreme detail. So it's the exact same process, right? Where do you want to be in 12 months' time? What does your day-to-day life look like? How many clients do you want to be working with, or who do you want to be helping? What revenue does that represent to you? What does your life look like when you've achieved this situation? How would you feel when you wake up every morning if this was your reality, right? And again, you're just going into deeper layers and deeper layers, because all we're doing here is we've got the current situation. Now we need to find the desired situation, because we need that gap in the middle, right? And when someone basically can clearly see where they are right now to where they want to go, and there's a massive fucking gap there, the pain of staying where they are actually starts to become real, right? The cost of inaction actually starts to become clear, right? You've not pitched anything at this point. You've literally just asked questions, and that's it. Step three from that point is to reflect back on what you've just heard to make sure that you are confirming the bias and confirming what you've heard at all times throughout, right? So you're doing this to basically get to a result, in essence, of them being in a spot where they really understand the size and length of the gap and the space that they're in from where they are now to where they want to go. So all you're going to do is you're going to repeat things to do with their previous starting point, current situation. You're then going to jump onto their desired situation. And all you're trying to do in this part of the call is just get them to see it themselves clearly. Even ask them, do you understand like the spacing that we've got here and the gap to what's missing, to really get that confirmation from them throughout on the call, right? You're not persuading, you're just asking questions and getting confirmation, right? And silence is your biggest weapon throughout this entire call. Ask questions and shut the fuck up. It's as simple as that, right? And a lot of business owners can't handle silence on sales calls because they feel awkward, right? But the moment that you jump in to save someone from silence is the moment that they can start talking, start explaining, and they basically fill in their own cup and they fill in their own gap and they fill in the pool of pain. But the moment that you jump in and fill that gap, you've just given them a lifeline, right? When you're asking people questions and they are starting to rattle off their answers and perspectives and experiences, you need to let them sit in it. You need to let them speak, and that will be uncomfortable for them. It will be also uncomfortable for you. But it's more uncomfortable to get to the end of the call or throughout the call having to persuade someone to want to buy services. But if you get someone into a point where they are sat there in their own pool of pain with full clarity on their current situation, full clarity on their desired situation, then a sale is much, much, much easier, and you've not had to beg or anything, right? You don't need to fill the gaps. You don't need to do anything. Let them think, let them feel, and let them process, right? Because that silence will do more damage than anything else on a sales call, because they know that you're not going to jump in and save them. They know that if this call is going to run smoothly, they're going to need to speak. So when you ask someone a question and sat there and it's like, oh, I feel a bit uncomfortable, I feel this, like, just let them sit in it, right? You do not want to rescue them at any point. And I know that your natural instinct will be to rescue them, but you need to resist that urge, right? Because silence is doing the work more than any words that you can ever do. And that's what a pool of pain is. That is where someone's really having clarity to where they are, right? When you diagnose properly, when you ask the right questions, when you listen more than you talk, when you use silence strategically, something magical happens. You don't have to persuade, right? They start to sell that to themselves, right? They start to think, Jesus, I need to sort this problem out. They start thinking about how they can't go on like this. They can start thinking about who else have you helped in my situation, to see evidence and social proof, which you can use as a pitch deck at the end to get your confidence and element through, right? Like, you're not pushing anymore, right? They are pulling, they are asking how you can help, they are leaning in, they are interested because they've sat in that pool of pain, because they've seen that gap for where they are now to where they want to go, right? And all you need to do from that point, right, is just acknowledge them. That is it. Acknowledge them, understand them, digest them, and then bridge the gap with your program or your product in the middle. It's as simple as that. There's no bullshit, traditional, high pressure persuading sales in any way, shape, or form. You are literally just asking questions, diagnosing the problem. The 12-stage dynamic sales script I use is 12 stages, and literally people can just read questions off on each stage to automatically create all of this visual picture that I'm trying to showcase here. It's not difficult in any way, shape, or form, right? Because the people that will go through this process will be highly, highly bought in, right? Because you know everything that there is to know about them. You understand what they need, you understand they're committed to the outcome. And for me as well, like, just from a moral obligation, is I'm not going to close to someone where I don't know that I can actually help them. It's as simple as that. Like, there's no way on earth that I'd be just going, right, yeah, I can help you and I can close you, but if I've not actually ran that extensive discovery and that diagnostic on a call. So it's good for you because you're going to get to know that client a hell of a lot more. So when it comes to the sale and onboarding, you've created this massive realistic picture for what's actually happening. Whereas if you jump straight into pitching and persuading immediately, you don't even know anything about that person and you're selling to them for the sake of selling, right? So what I want you to focus on is basically just the different layers, right? When you are in that current situation and that desired situation and that gap and that pool of pain, you always need to have follow-up questions. You always need to fully understand. Even if you understand exactly where they are in one question, I want you to ask 5 more questions around that just to make sure that you're going underneath those layers and you really get into the depth of the actual problem, right? Then from that point, once you've created this picture, I want you to constantly reflect back on what they've said or what you've spoke about to re-acknowledge and reinstate things that you have spoke about throughout on the actual call. So even little things like, so based on everything that you've told me, this is what I think that you need to do and here's why, right? If you do all of these situations right now, I can pretty much guarantee that you will get to X result in A, B, C months or whatever, right? So what we're trying to do is basically just get to that point of being collaborative, right, rather than combative, right? We don't need to be pressuring people. We need to be positive. Like, people aren't going to buy from someone who's making them feel like a twat. It's as simple as that. So the whole point of this video is to just get you to rethink sales, because I think sales is incredible. It allows you to do things with your life that was never possible before. But if you are legitimately helping someone and solving a problem for them as well, like, you've also got like such an incredible feeling that you can have off the back of just running a sales process normally. And this is not just for sales calls. This is if you're in an event, if this is on a DM conversation, if this is on an email thread, or if this is on a forum post, all you're doing is you're just keeping layering those questions. It's as simple as that, right? Close rate goes up, client quality goes up, your enjoyment and fulfillment behind sales goes up, you're earning more fucking money without being an absolute dick in the process. And I feel like you can't really go wrong with that. And this is not just me winging this. Like, I have absolutely ridiculous high level sales closing statistics in my career. Obviously, Ben Mahmood, my best mate, takes our calls now, which if you've booked a call off this channel, you'll have spoke to him before, and you'll see that he does not batter people on calls. If we can help someone, we will help them. It's as simple as that. If there's sometimes we might look at a situation and think, do you know what, I don't think you're in the right spot yet, or what we're doing and what we're delivering won't be able to actually solve that problem, we'll tell you. We don't need to push people into sales calls, because people will just come back to us, because we treat people with respect. We focus on diagnostics rather than persuasion and abuse. Some of the stuff that I've heard and seen in different business markets is absolutely ridiculous. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. It's a little bit longer than my other ones talking about sales. And again, guys, if you want to know more about the Coach Consultant and what we do inside our programs in our company, go to www.thecoachconsultant.uk, or the description and bio's got a direct link, or I'm available on Instagram at @benoxf_ at any point. Hope to see you soon.